A bipartisan delegation of senators has returned from China, where they met with President Xi. The trip was aimed at cracking down on fentanyl production, promoting trade, and easing tensions between the two countries. Joining us now is one of the senators on that trip, a Republican senator of Louisiana, Bill Cassidy. Hey, you're in quite a state all of a sudden. You got the Speaker of the House, you got Scalia. Are all you guys in leadership? Is that destined for you?
Well, I don't know if it's destined for me, but I'm glad they got it. I think that Mike Johnson's a good guy. I think he and Steve Scalise will work well together. And for the country. Of course, Louisiana's proud, but it's going to be good for the country, I think.
I don't know about the Saints.
Hey, the Saints did pretty well yesterday.
That's right.
They racked up more points than they have all season.
That's right. Senator, you were also you met with Netanyahu in Israel as well. Well, let's start with China, because you met with Xi. And do you remember when W said he met with Putin and he looked into his soul or something? Did you look at, what was your impression of President Xi? Is this a man that we can trust and work with? And I mean, the balance of the world is sort of could be our hinge on our relationship with this man.
So my impression of Xi is not just the time I met with him, but it's what I've read and what I discussed with other people in China and South Korea. He's a guy overwhelmingly concerned about the position of the Chinese Communist Party within Chinese society. He is willing to sacrifice business certainty in order to maintain that control. Now, when you speak to business guys in South Korea, they say, you know, when you go to China, you're not competing against another company. You're competing against the CCP. And whoever they decide to favor, that's who's going to win. Now, obviously, Xi has set that up. There's an uncertainty that is just permeates. We had a conversation with someone about Jack Ma. And one of my colleagues pointed out that anybody that thinks that Jack Ma was kind of jettisoned for any other reason than he took on the regime, well, there's one other person in the solar system that believes that. So point being that they are willing to sacrifice innovative CEOs, business certainty, the willingness of other companies to invest in China in order to maintain that security. And I think that there's nothing in my personal meeting with Mr. Xi that contradicted that. Well,
if he does that to Chinese companies, I mean, there's no telling. He has no love for probably U.S. companies, and to that end, anything is possible. I don't know whether that's a person you can do business with then.
Well, he wants foreign direct investment, and their economy is slowing down, both because of decreased internal consumption, but also decreased investment. But there's just an uncertainty there. Some of our companies, which have committed hundreds of millions of dollars, are now finding that they're semi-sanctioned and they have no clue why. And that's just a chilling effect. So again, when we met with American businessmen, they're very circumspect, but it's clear. They don't know the rules of the game, and they're not sure how to know the rules of the game. Yet China wants that foreign direct investment. Frankly, I think that's one of the reasons we got such a long, high-level meeting. And that was just one of a series of long, high-level meetings. But until they give business certainty, I'm not sure they get the FDI they want.
Senator, let me just pivot to the Middle East for a second, but it relates to China as it relates to Taiwan, which is to say that you have President Biden trying to connect dollars to Israel to dollars to Ukraine, all of which connects back maybe one day to dollars to Taiwan. How do you think about all of those things as one, or do you think they all should be considered independently?
Well, one, whatever is the legislative strategy that helps it get through. There's the House is, you just talked about Mike Johnson. The House is obviously the one which has had the most problems, Republicans in the House, with aid for Ukraine. And I think there's a concern about the lack of accountability. I think there's also a concern, is it open-ended? So the case has to be made, one, that there is accountability for the money spent, and that that it's not going to be forever. It may be for a long time, but then what is the rationale for that long time? That strategy, Andrew, of whether or not it should all be packaged or separated, I think I've heard different things in my conference as to the wisdom of each approach. I'm not sure where it lands.
Senator, talking about the Middle East, I just keep coming back to Iran, and I don't know if you were around for. I mean, they have been a thorn in our side and in the world side for decades, multi-decades. And this time, I think it might be different a little bit. I don't know if we have the tolerance to keep putting up with all the troublemaking. And if you go to the source, that's what people say. We're going to have to deal with the source of all this at some point. That's dangerous. What do you think? How are we going to do it? Can they be? Go ahead.
I'm not sure how you deal with the source unless you topple the Ayatollah and the Revolutionary Guard. The Iranian people are good people. They want freedom. They want something different. It is that theocratic and kleptocratic leadership which is kind of keeping them down and directing them in a certain direction. I think one of the beauties of the Abraham Accords, it began to unite the Sunni nations with Israel as a united front against Iran, which is kind of pursuing a Shia crescent, if you will, from the Gulf to the Mediterranean. Hamas is Sunni, but they're kind of a client state of Iran. I think there's a lot of reason for Sunni nations to be concerned about that. But I'm not quite sure. I don't want to commit U.S. ground forces to Tehran. I think it's a mistake. We shouldn't do it. It's going to take steady, long, patient pressure at every pressure point in order to peacefully, at times in a hot way, but never kind of like in a hot war, confront Iran. Eventually it'll happen. We have more resources than they, but it's going to be a while.
Well, they got a lot more resources in the last couple of years, and the sanctions aren't effective now. We're trying to do that. Nuclear. I mean, we have. I don't know whether we caused what's going on, but they certainly are in a lot better position than they were a couple of years ago, and we need to figure that out somehow.
I agree with that.
Senator Cassidy, 38 points. It helps to end on something on a positive note. The world is spinning out of control, it seems like, but hopefully not. Thanks, Senator.